She was robbed on the road, that's all. Some bad egg spied a woman hitchhiking between Hemmingford and Lyme Bisca, picked her up, killed her, robbed her of her money and her jewelry, then carried her body far enough into the nearest field so it couldn't be seen from the road. From his long face I could see he was thinking she had probably been raped as well as robbed, and that it was probably a good thing that there wasn't enough of her left to tell for sure. That's probably it, then, I said, and somehow I was able to keep a straight face until he was gone. Then I turned over, and although I thumped my stump in doing so, I began to laugh. I buried my face in my pillow, but not even that would stifle the sound. When the nurse, an ugly old battle-axe, came in and saw the tears streaking my face, she assumed, which makes an ass out of you and me, that I had been crying. She softened, a thing I would have thought impossible, and gave me an extra morphine pill. I was, after all, the grieving husband and bereft father. I deserved comfort. And do you know why I was laughing? Was it Jones's well-meaning stupidity? The fortuitous appearance of a dead female hobo who might have been killed by her male traveling companion while they were drunk? It was both of those things, but mostly it was the shoe. The farmer had only stopped to investigate what the coy dogs were fighting over because he'd seen a lady's patent leather shoe in the ditch. But when Sheriff Jones had asked about footwear that day at the house the previous summer, I'd told him Arlette's canvas shoes were the ones that were gone. The idiot had forgotten. And he never remembered. When I got back to the farm, almost all my livestock was dead. The only survivor was Eloise, who looked at me with reproachful, starveling eyes and lowed plaintively. I fed her as lovingly as you might feed a pet, and really, that was all she was. What else would you call an animal that can no longer contribute to a family's livelihood? There was a time when Harlan, assisted by his wife, would have taken care of my place while I was in the hospital. It's how we neighbored out in the middle. But even after the mournful blat of my dying cow started drifting across the fields to him while he sat down to his supper, he stayed away. If I'd been in his place, I might have done the same. In Harl Cottery's view, and the world's, my son hadn't been content just to ruin his daughter, He'd followed her to what should have been a place of refuge, stolen her away, and forced her into a life of crime. How that sweetheart bandit's stuff must have eaten into her father. Like acid. Ha! The following week, around the time the Christmas decorations were going up in farmhouses and along Main Street in Hemmingford home, Sheriff Jones came out to the farm again. One look at his face told me what his news was, and I began to shake my head. No. No more. I won't have it. I can't have it. Go away. I went back in the house and tried to bar the door against him, but I was both weak and one-handed, and he forced his way in easily enough. Take hold, Wilf, he said. You'll get through this. As if he knew what he was talking about. He looked in the cabinet with the decorative ceramic beer stein on top of it, found my sadly depleted bottle of whiskey, poured the last finger into the stein, and handed it to me. Doctor wouldn't approve, he said, but he's not here and you're going to need it. The sweetheart bandits had been discovered in their final hideout, Shannon dead of the counterman's bullet, Henry of one he had put into his own brain. The bodies had been taken to the Elko mortuary, pending instructions. Harlan Cottery would see to his daughter, but would have nothing to do with my son. Of course not. I did that myself. Henry arrived in Hemmingford by train on the 18th of December, and I was at the depot, along with a black funeral hack from Castings Brothers. My picture was taken repeatedly. I was asked questions which I didn't even try to answer. The headlines in both the World Herald and the much humbler Hemmingford Weekly featured the phrase grieving father. If the reporters had seen me at the funeral home, however, when the cheap pine box was opened, they would have seen real grief. They could have featured the phrase screaming father. The bullet my son fired into his temple as he sat with Shannon's head on his lap had mushroomed as it crossed his brain and taken out a large chunk of his skull on the left side. But that wasn't the worst. His eyes were gone. His lower lip was chewed away so that his teeth jutted in a grim grin. All that remained of his nose was a red stub. Before some cop or sheriff's deputy had discovered the bodies, the rats had made a merry meal of my son and his dear love. Fix him up, I told Herbert Castings when I could talk rationally again. Mr. James. Sir. The damage is.